Motivational interviewing is a style of working with individuals that helps them to come up with their own motivation for wanting to make changes in their lives. It works really well with teenagers because they are at a stage in their life where they're not wanting to be told what to do, where they're saying, I know what I need and this is my life. And so with motivational interviewing, what we do is we come alongside them and we allow their expertise and we add in some of our expertise in some cases. But ultimately what we're trying to do is to pull from them what their motivations might be to change. So motivational interviewing was actually created about 25 years ago by William Miller and Stephen Rolnick. And it is a strengths-based style, meaning that we do take a look at the individual that we're working with and we focus on what they bring to the table, what expertise they bring to the table. For years and years, when we have sat down and done interviews and assessments with individuals, teenagers and adults, what we have done is we have looked at what's wrong with them. Most of our assessment forms go through and say, so what problems does this individual have? And then we give them services geared to those problems. Well, that is part of the issue, but the other part that we have often missed is what strengths does this individual have that we can actually come in and take a look at their issues and their strengths. Change isn't something that just happens. We generally don't just wake up in the morning and say, okay, that's it, I'm going to change this whole behavior in my life, and we put it together, and that day we change it and we move forward, and that's the end of the process. What we know is that it's a more detailed process than that, and Prochaska and DiClemente, also around 20 or 25 years ago or so, created a model of change called the process of change, and what they talked about is they were able to identify different stages. So the first stage is pre-contemplation, which is I'm not even thinking that I have a problem. And a lot of times when we see a teenager, that's where they're at. Somebody else thinks maybe they have a problem, but they're like, no, I smoke marijuana, it's perfectly fine, I don't have any problems with it, it's not like I'm doing hard drugs, it's fine, I'm fine. Then we have the next stage is contemplation, and that stage is maybe I have a problem, maybe I don't. I'm really not convinced, but it's possible that I have a problem. The next stage is preparation. If I did decide that I had a problem, this is how I might handle that problem. This is how I may resolve that issue. And then there's the stage that we want everybody to get into, and that's action, just doing it, actually doing something about the issue. And as hard as action is, the next stage is even harder, which is maintenance. Maintenance is keeping that change going. All right, so I made a decision that I'm going to stop using marijuana. Man, all my friends are still using marijuana, and I went for 3 weeks and I didn't smoke any marijuana, and then it was a graduation party was coming up, and man, what was I going to do? In the past, what we have done when we have sat down and talked to individuals about what issues they may have going on in their life, we have tended to focus on what they're not doing well. So if marijuana exists as an issue, not necessarily that they're dependent, but that they're using it, we would tend to focus on, well, it's not okay, and you're underage, and you shouldn't be smoking marijuana. And we would start to take a look, maybe even what other factors they had going on in their life. Well, you know, in their family, we know there's substance use in their family, and we start looking at all the problems. Well, one of the things we want to do with motivational interviewing is that we want to start taking a look at the strengths. What strengths does this youth have that they bring forward when we sit down and have a conversation with them? What are they doing right in their life? Some of the individuals who are using marijuana are doing very well in school. They have good grades, they're involved in the community, and yes, we don't really want them using marijuana because they're underage. We know that it's a detriment to their health potentially, and even to their motivation in their lifestyle. And rather than coming at them in a format of, you know, I'm the adult and I know what you need to do and you should not be doing this, what we're going to do with motivational interviewing is we're going to come alongside them and we're going to have a conversation with them and ideally engage them in that conversation and have the information that is talked about be from their perspective rather than our perspective. I want to allow that individual to be the expert. So I may check in with them and say, so what are some of the things that you enjoy about using marijuana in your life, and what are some of the downsides to using marijuana? When in talking with an individual, if you were trying to gain information about their perspective on how marijuana fits into their lives, some of the questions that you might ask are, What are some of the benefits that you find from using marijuana? What are some of the downsides, some of the negatives to using marijuana in your life? If you were going to make some changes in how much you use, if you decided to reduce your use of marijuana, or maybe even to stop your use of marijuana, what might that look like? What would that take for you to be able to do that? If you ever got to that point, what would you need? Maybe from your family, your friends, what would you need to have support to be able to do that? If you were going to stop using marijuana or reduce your use of marijuana, what might you need from other people? Another question would be, how would they know if they did have a problem in their lives? What proof would they need to see that in fact, you know what, I have crossed the line between not having a problem and having a problem? And if they're able to come up with some of that information, it at least gives them a clue of where they are, where they see themselves and their use of marijuana. Some of the other main ideas about motivational interviewing are that there is this thing called ambivalence, and that is that I want to and I don't want to. And what we have found is that it's a very normal part of changing. I mean, I want to go back to school, but you know what, I get into so much trouble when I do go back into school because I've been homeschooling. I kind of want to go back to school because there's more social, but I don't want to. I get to sleep in later when I homeschool. I want to stop smoking marijuana. On the other hand, you know what, it is kind of fun. I mean, I want to, but I don't want to. So one of the things that we do with motivational interviewing is we focus on that ambivalence and helping people to resolve their ambivalence. There are some skills that we use that we, in listening to people, in helping to pull out their expertise, and you will generally hear that in the acronym of the OARS, the OARS, and that is asking open-ended questions, using affirming statements, which is validating the strengths that you see that the youth already has, doing reflections or active listening, as some people know it, and summaries. It's some of the skills that we use to actually focus on their issues and their internal motivation. Because the ultimate goal of motivational interviewing is to have that individual advocate for their own change process. We want them to hear themselves advocate for their own change process. In the past, what we have done is we've sort of been the advocate for their change process. So the shift is that we want them to hear themselves talk about why they might want to change and what that would look like for them.